Privacy issues, abortion issues, an enormous amount of pressure.
Woody Allen, now 89, has finally broken his silence. Not with a statement, not through a PR team, but through quiet, personal conversations now leaking out. Sources close to the legendary director say he was deeply shaken and heartbroken by her death, but also strangely surprised. Why surprised? They'd shared 56 years of history, 9 films, and a bond that never really faded. She wasn't just his muse, she was his mirror, his anchor, and his fiercest defender. What Allen is admitting now in the aftermath of her passing flips the entire story we thought we knew. This wasn't just a director and an actress, it was a connection that outlived romance and defied reason. For decades, the world saw their bond through the glossy lens of Annie Hall and those charming comedies. But the truth was far more tangled, more painful, more real. She stood beside him when everyone else turned away. She defended him even when it nearly ruined her own career. Now, as Woody stares down his own mortality, he's finally revealing the story behind it all. The woman who saved him, the love he couldn't keep, and the regrets that still haunt him. It all began back in 1969. Woody was casting for his Broadway play, Play It Again, Sam. He'd auditioned countless actresses, talented, beautiful, forgettable. Then Diane Keaton walked in. 23, fresh from California, dressed like she'd raided a thrift shop, speaking in a way that made no sense, but felt completely alive. Woody later described her as adorable, funny, totally original. But what he didn't say was how terrified he was. Terrified because she embodied everything he wasn't. Light where he was shadow, spontaneous where he was cautious, free where he was trapped by his own mind. He cast her instantly, not just for the role, but because he couldn't bear not seeing her again. Weeks later, they were inseparable. Months later, she'd moved in. Their friends joked it wouldn't last 6 months. How could it? He was the anxious Brooklyn intellectual dissecting every emotion, and she was the sunny California dreamer who could say la-di-da and actually mean it. Yet somehow, for a while, they made it work. He lived in his head and she lived in the moment. He collected anxieties, she collected joy. Somehow, against all odds, it worked, at least for a while. Those early years, 1969 to 1971, were the happiest of Allen's life. He'd confess this years later to close friends. With Diane, he finally felt seen, not as the neurotic comedian, not as the famous director, but as the shy Brooklyn kid who never believed he was enough. She had this rare way of looking right at him, really seeing him, and making him feel okay for once. They'd walk through Central Park for hours, Diane marveling at clouds, dogs, kids laughing, the simplest things. Woody never got it, how someone could be happy without dissecting why. She tried to teach him that joy didn't always need logic, but he just couldn't learn it. His mind wouldn't let him. Living together exposed the cracks. Woody's affection came with control, sweet on the surface, suffocating underneath. He wanted to know everything, where she was, who she spoke to, what she thought. He'd edit her like one of his scripts, trying to make her sharper, deeper, more like the women he imagined on film. But Diane refused to change. Not with anger, but with quiet rebellion. When he corrected her grammar, she'd grin and say it wrong again. When he handed her a stack of books, she'd flip through her photography magazines instead. When he mocked her outfits, she'd double down, mixing even wilder patterns the next day. It made him crazy, but it also pulled him closer. She was the one person he couldn't direct, couldn't mold, couldn't predict. And that terrified him. Friends from that era remember their fights. Not loud shouting, but sharp, icy exchanges. Woody would dissect her thoughts like a critic while she'd simply smile and say, "You think too much." That line cut him deeper than any insult ever could, because she was right. The breaking point came in 1971. Francis Ford Coppola was casting The Godfather, and through a connection, Diane got an audition for K. Corleone. She almost skipped it. Woody brushed it off. "It's a gangster movie, not your style."
Yes, I'd have to go through all the many regrets in my life and the many people who are self-deluded, who are...
You're doing Play It Again, Sam, with me. But something inside her, curiosity, instinct, rebellion, pushed her to go. She nailed the audition. She hadn't even read the full script before accepting the role. Years later, she'd laugh about it in interviews. But that single choice changed everything. How bad is that? I didn't even really read it, but I needed a job. That's what Diane said later. But everyone close to them knew the truth. She didn't just need work, she needed escape. When she told Woody she'd be in California for months filming The Godfather, that she'd miss his movie, he didn't yell, he froze. That silence hit harder than shouting ever could. Finally, he muttered, "You're choosing Coppola over me. You're choosing them over us." Diane tried to explain. It wasn't betrayal, it was her life, her career. But he couldn't hear it. To Woody, it felt like a personal rejection. Cold, final, unforgivable. So she left, and something between them cracked for good. While Diane was filming The Godfather, something else quietly unfolded, something Woody would never stop thinking about. She met Al Pacino. The connection wasn't instant, but it was real. The chemistry on screen came from a spark that couldn't be faked. Pacino was everything Woody wasn't: intense, raw, magnetic. Where Woody thought, Pacino felt. Where Woody analyzed, Pacino moved. After years of living under Woody's quiet control, Diane was drawn to that untamed energy. They weren't officially together, not yet, but the pull was obvious. Woody sensed it before anyone said a word. He'd watch the dailies, fixated on how she looked at Pacino. Soft, alive, different. Friends say Woody became obsessed with The Godfather set gossip, calling mutual acquaintances, asking, "How's Diane doing out there? How's Pacino?" It ate at him. When she finally came back to New York, she wasn't the same woman. Diane was confident now, grounded, untouchable. She'd worked with Coppola, faced Brando, matched Pacino. She'd been part of history. Woody's world of clever one-liners suddenly felt small, outdated. They tried to patch things up. She even starred in his next couple of films, but the spark was gone. She wasn't his discovery anymore. She was her own force. And Woody, who'd once adored her freedom, couldn't handle it now that it meant independence from him. By 1972, it was over. Some say he ended it. Most say she did. What's certain is that Diane was done. Done being analyzed, corrected, molded. She didn't want to be anyone's project. She just wanted to be loved for who she already was. And that was something Woody Allen could never do. He didn't love her. He loved the idea of her, the version he'd built in his head, the witty muse, the charming chaos, the puzzle he could never solve. But the real Diane, messy, unpredictable, beautifully wild, she scared him to death. You'd think that would have been the end. Break up, move on, right? Not for Woody Allen. 5 years after their split, in 1977, he made Annie Hall and made sure Diane starred in it. This wasn't just inspired by their relationship. It was their relationship, scene by scene, word for word. The arguments were real ones they'd had. The silences, the awkwardness, the laughter. It was all them. Even the name Annie Hall came straight from her. Annie was her nickname. Hall was her real last name before Keaton. Woody wrote the role so specifically for Diane that no one else could have pulled it off. He even had her wear her own clothes from their dating days. Those oversized jackets, vests, and ties. That was just her natural style. What the world saw as quirky fashion was simply Diane being Diane. But here's the twist. He wasn't just making a movie. He was putting their life on display. Every intimate detail, every private tension, every piece of her turned into art. Some people called it genius. Others called it exploitation. Diane called it weird and painful, but she still did it. Because even after everything, she trusted his direction. And maybe part of her still wanted to hold on to what they'd had, even if it was through a lens of fiction. The film exploded. Annie Hall won Best Picture. Diane won Best Actress. The world fell in love with their story. But it wasn't the truth. Woody had rewritten the ending. In real life, their breakup was messy, raw, unresolved. On screen, it became bittersweet, philosophical, almost romantic. He'd turned heartbreak into art, rewritten rejection into mutual goodbye, reshaped loss into something beautiful. And she let him. Maybe she wanted that version too, the one where they ended softly, not broken. Years later, Woody admitted to friends that Annie Hall wasn't a love letter at all. It was an exorcism. His way of trying to purge her ghost from his mind, to understand why it all fell apart, to turn pain into something he could live with. But the thing about exorcisms, sometimes the ghosts don't leave. Sometimes the ghost doesn't leave. Sometimes it lingers, quiet, heavy, impossible to forget.
Did you take it seriously?
I took it seriously in the middle of the night, when you get a phone call at 4 in the morning saying that you're going to be killed or that...
A relationship, I think, is like a shark. You know, it has to constantly move forward or it dies.
After Annie Hall, something strange happened. Their romance was over, done, finished. But professionally, they were just getting started. Between 1978 and 2020, Diane Keaton starred in 8 more Woody Allen films. From Manhattan in 1979 to Manhattan Murder Mystery in 1993, and more that followed for over 4 decades. 42 years of working together after breaking up. Imagine that. Decades of standing across from each other, him directing her, creating art together while holding emotions at arm's length. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. Friends say there was an unspoken deal between them. She could love others, live her life, but on screen, she was his. And Woody needed that. He once told a friend, "Every actress I cast gets compared to Diane." Every woman after her, Mia Farrow, Diane Wist, Scarlett Johansson, Cate Blanchett, was measured against the same unreachable standard. None of them carried that same spark, that effortless magic that made his words feel alive. But that bond came with a cost, for her, especially when it came to Al Pacino. Their on and off relationship stretched from 1974 to 1990. 15 long years of love, chaos, and confusion. And through it all, Woody's shadow never left. He was always there, unseen, but present. The ghost in the room. Diane would head off to shoot another Woody film, gush about his genius, his creative brilliance, his vision. And Pacino, no stranger to ego himself, couldn't compete with that. How do you fight someone who already lost her but still holds a piece of her soul? That's what Woody was, no longer a lover, but an unshakable presence. Pacino wanted something real. Marriage, stability, commitment. Diane couldn't give it. Not because she didn't love him, she did. "I was mad for him," she'd later say, but because some quiet part of her still belonged to Woody. Not romantically, but emotionally, creatively. She was tied to him in ways she couldn't break free from. Then came 2014 and everything shattered. Dylan Farrow's accusations against Woody Allen resurfaced, and the details were devastating. Hollywood turned on him fast. Directors went silent. Co-stars distanced themselves. Awards stopped calling his name. By 2018, as the Me Too movement gained strength, Woody Allen had become a pariah, a ghost, not just in Diane's life anymore, but in all of Hollywood. Everyone turned their backs on him, everyone except Diane Keaton. In January 2018, she posted 13 words that changed everything. "Woody Allen is my friend, and I continue to believe him." Just 13 words, and her world exploded. Hollywood froze her out overnight. Judd Apatow blasted her publicly. Dylan Farrow's supporters labeled her an enabler, and article after article painted her as delusional, loyal to the wrong man, on the wrong side of history. Roles vanished, projects slipped away, and calls from longtime friends stopped coming. She went from beloved icon to controversy magnet, all because she refused to back down. By 2023, 5 years into the backlash, she gave an interview that only made the fire burn hotter. When asked if working with Woody had hurt her career, she didn't hesitate. "No," she said, "not at all. I'm proud. I'm proud beyond measure." Then came the line that made headlines everywhere. She called survivor culture a horrible shame and added, "You gotta get over it." The internet erupted. The backlash was instant, vicious, relentless. But Diane? She didn't delete, didn't apologize, didn't soften her words. She stood firm, unapologetically. People couldn't understand it. Why stay loyal to a man she hadn't dated in 50 years? Why risk everything? Her reputation, her legacy, her career. But here's the truth. Woody never asked for her defense. He never begged her to speak up. She did it because she chose to. Because after 50 years of knowing him, his brilliance, his flaws, his darkest moments, she looked at the accusations and simply didn't believe them. Was she wrong? Maybe. Was her loyalty misguided? Possibly. But it was real. She knew the price, and she paid it willingly. Behind the scenes, though, her health was fading fast. By 2024, close friends noticed the signs: weight loss, fatigue, canceled projects, fewer public appearances. But Diane kept everything private, refusing sympathy or attention. She faced her decline the same way she'd faced her controversies, with quiet dignity and a fierce sense of control. Then, on the morning of October 11, 2025, tragedy struck. Emergency services were called to her Brentwood home at 8:08 a.m. She was rushed to a local hospital but pronounced dead soon after. The news broke hours later. Diane Keaton, aged 79, had passed away. No cause of death was revealed, just that it had been sudden. Friends, fans, and colleagues flooded social media with shock and grief. But when Woody Allen got the call, sources say he was struck completely silent, like time itself had stopped. "I didn't even know she was sick," he reportedly whispered. Those words hit like a knife. How could he not know? 56 years of history, 9 films together, and she defended him when the whole world turned its back. Yet he had no idea she was dying. That realization gutted him. While Woody had been drowning in his own isolation, trapped by scandal and resentment, she'd been fighting a much quieter battle and losing it alone. Her funeral was small, intimate, just family and a few close friends. Woody showed up masked, frail, and hunched, looking every bit his 89 years. In his trembling hands, he carried a framed photograph from 1971 of the two of them laughing on the set of Play It Again, Sam. That laughter wasn't staged. It was pure, real, the kind that bursts from joy, not performance. When mourners saw it, tears flowed freely. Meryl Streep, who attended, later told a friend that Woody broke down completely. No quiet tears, no stoic face, just uncontrollable body-shaking sobs. She said she'd never seen him like that. Nobody had. For decades, Woody had been the master of emotional distance, the man who intellectualized everything, but in that church, that armor shattered.
She stood by him when the entire world turned away.
Well, I mean, you don't have to, you know.
No, I know, but you know.
What the?
Later, it came out that Woody had written Diane a long letter before she died, a confession, a goodbye, a raw truth he'd never dared to say aloud. But he sent it too late. She was gone before she could ever read it. In the days after her death, something shifted in him. He started talking, not to the press, but quietly, to old friends, the few who still picked up when he called. He began sharing things he'd buried for years, truths that explained why they could never truly last. "I was too controlling, and she was too free," he admitted. "I tried to remake her into something manageable, and she fought back by being even more herself. I loved her, but I loved controlling her more. That's not love, that's ownership. And she was right to leave." Then came a revelation that stunned even his closest confidants. "About Annie Hall," he said quietly. "I gave her the Oscar, but she gave me everything else. The film, the career, the credibility, the soul of my work. Without her, I'm just another neurotic guy making comedies about neurotic people. With her, I was making something real." And in that moment, Woody Allen, once so proud, so detached, finally understood what he'd lost. He didn't hold back. "I loved Mia differently, Soon Yi differently, all of them differently. But Diane, I loved her the most," he admitted. "She saw the real me, the pathetic, insecure, damaged me, and she stayed until I made it impossible." At 89, staring down his own mortality, that's the line he repeats to friends over and over. "I should have just let her be." He says it like a prayer now. "I should have loved her as she was, not as I wanted her to be. I should have been grateful for the miracle of her instead of trying to fix it." When people asked about Diane defending him during the scandals, his answer said everything. "She believed me when nobody else would. She stood by me when it cost her everything, her career, her reputation, her friendships. I never asked her to do that. She did it because that's who she was, loyal, stubborn, unshakably sure of what she believed. The same woman I once tried to change, the world tried to break, and she still said no, just like she said no to me when I pushed too hard." Then came the revelation that silenced the room, his memory of their last conversation, months before she passed. They'd spoken occasionally through the years, short check-ins, polite exchanges. But this call was different. Diane had called him. She sounded calm, almost peaceful. She told him, "I don't regret any of it. The relationship, the films, defending you, none of it. I was who I was, and you were who you were, and it was what it was." Classic Diane. No overthinking, no guilt, just acceptance. She'd always lived in the moment, and even in goodbye, she stayed true to that. Now, when Woody talks about her, there's no bitterness, just awe. "She was right about everything," he says softly. "About me, about life, about not thinking so much." Annie Hall wasn't our truth. It was my fantasy of what I wished we were. She was a better person than any character I ever wrote. She saved me more than I ever saved her. 56 years, 9 films, one impossible love that refused to fit any label, not quite a romance, not just a friendship, something deeper, stranger, painfully human. That's the real story of Woody Allen and Diane Keaton, a connection too messy for a script, too real for Hollywood, and too lasting to ever fade away. She was his muse, his conscience, his defender, and the one who slipped away. He was her mentor, her tormentor, the man she never truly escaped, even after walking out the door. The irony's brutal. Diane Keaton never married, dated Hollywood's most desired men, yet stayed loyal longest to the one who could never love her right. And Woody Allen, the man famous for moving on fast, for chasing youth and control, never really got over the California girl who didn't play by his rules. Their story defies every label. Too tangled to call romance, too deep to call friendship, too unresolved to call history, and too raw to ever fade. What they had existed in that strange electric space, only they understood. Now Woody sits at 89, alone with his memories and regrets. The knowledge that he can never say the things he finally understands haunts him. Diane's gone, and with her, the last living link to the version of himself that still believed in love, art, and possibility. That young, ambitious man who thought he could shape people the way he shaped film scripts, who thought control meant care, and who learned too late that love can't be directed like a scene. Diane Keaton's legacy isn't just her films, her Oscar, or her timeless style. It's her courage. She defined Woody Allen, on screen and off. She gave his work its soul, its humor, its humanity. She stood beside him when standing beside him meant standing alone. Maybe that's the truth of their story. She saw him clearly, flaws and all, and didn't turn away. Not when they were lovers. Not when they broke apart. Not even when the world told her to disown him. Diane stayed herself, stubbornly, authentically, fearlessly. And in doing so, she gave him the one thing he spent a lifetime chasing on screen: the miracle of being loved exactly as you are. In Hollywood's long, glittering history, there's never been anything quite like Woody and Diane. Two people bound by love, art, and contradiction. Proof that some connections are too complicated to explain, but too powerful to ever die. Before you go, if this story hit you like it hit us, smash that like button, subscribe to America's Secret, and drop your thoughts below. Was Diane's loyalty admirable or a beautiful mistake? Tell us what you think. Because some loves don't fade, they echo. And Woody and Diane? They left an echo that'll outlast them both.